Hello, my name is Dzindzihasvili, and we are back with underrated openings. Well, in this case today, we're not gonna talk about underrated opening. We're gonna talk about underrated variation in one very popular opening, French defense. I am very big fan of this variation, and I did a lot of researches, and I don't know if anyone knows more about this variation than me. Well, okay, actually in this position, after knight c3, this is a French, we know there are a whole bunch of different moves. There is knight f6, there is d takes e with various different continuations like knight f6, bishop d7, or knight d7. But we are not going to go through them, of course. Now, we are discussing the most popular move, bishop b4, e5, c5. And here, by far, the most common move, by far most popular move, most frequent move is a3. The move I'm suggesting is bishop d2. And again, I said it in a lecture on Scotch Gambit. And here, I'm going to repeat the same thing. Bishop d2 variation is very rich with a tactical and positional ideas. And that's why I would strongly recommend to adapt it, to play it, because you're going to learn a lot from playing this variation. As well as I guarantee you're going to get very playable, good position. And in a lot of cases, maybe winning position. If black misplays this opening, they're going to be on the verge of destruction. So bishop d2 move we're going to discuss here. There are practically 4 moves in this position. Knight c6, knight e7, knight h6, and cd. Well, let's start with the least popular. C takes d, you're going to go knight b5. And now, after bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, this position is not very good for black, because after knight e7, even this is a very, very disturbing position for black. Knight f5, knight takes, followed by bishop d3, and knight f3. White has big advantage. We don't want to go through this, and this is bad position, and it's known. White is threatening knight d6 check if bishops exchanged. So black should play bishop c5, then we go queen g4, and now either g6 or king f8. After knight f3, white has very, very strong position. A knight f8, I have seen, has been played. Bishop f8 in this position. But you still can go queen g4, and after knight c6, knight f3. Now, what did black do here? Now, black went bishop f4, and then bishop f8. That cannot be good. It never was good, and never will be good in chess. So white has advantage here. Those are very bad moves. I showed you bad variation for black. We shouldn't expect black to play it. So knight c6 is another move. It's very playable move, but after knight b5, white is guaranteed to get some advantage. Bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, and now black should stop knight d6 check. And the way you do that, they play knight takes d4. Now white doesn't want to play knight d6 check and be a pawn down for very little compensation. White is not developed, and knight on d6 is not gonna stand long. Black will be able to remove this knight by playing either knight f5 or f6. This is not a good pawn sacrifice. What white should do, play knight takes d4, c takes d, and go f4. But now white is gonna play knight f3, and eventually they're gonna get back d4 pawn. Well, after knight d7, knight f3, they're gonna get back d4 pawn and will have a clear advantage, because you see the difference in bishop on c8 and bishop on f1. Bishop is gonna go on d3, while bishop on d7 doesn't have much of a future. Well, normally, this is also a psychological thing. When you play bishop d2 move, what black will do, black on any level will try to refute this move. Now, there are two continuations, knight e7 and knight h6. Now, let's look at them. Knight h6 move. I used to recommend the same continuations as after knight e7, but that's not good for white. The best move is bishop takes h6, where white gets some advantage. Pawn takes h6, a3. Now bishop takes c3 will be very bad, because black has totally ruined pawn structure for no compensation for it. Black should play bishop a5, and now after d takes c, bishop takes c3 and bc, white's position is better. White does have some advantage on queen c7. We may play knight f3, and if queen takes c5, even queen d2. That will be better. Well, actually, you can analyze. I put quite some time in analyzing these positions, and final conclusion is that white does have some advantage. And I don't want to go through this because we have to analyze, and we have limited time. I don't want this lecture to go forever and analyze every continuation. The idea is for every opening lecture is to give you overview and explain basic ideas of it. So that's what we're going to do on knight h6. But knight e7 is the main move. Knight b5, bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, and now black plays castle in order to avoid knight d6 check. White goes f4. F4 move has to be played because black is eventually going to take on d4 and try to destroy our pawn center, pawns on d4 and e5. For example, if we go knight f3, c takes d, knight takes d4, knight c6, bishop d3, f6, we cannot hold e5 square. That's why we need additional support of e5, and we go f4. Knight c6, and it's interesting that we don't take here pawn on c5. After d takes c, black will play b6, and if we take, black has absolutely great compensation for a missing pawn. Now threatening a6, threatening bishop a6, and if we castle, black is going to have very strong attack on queen side. That's not the way you should play for white. Knight c6, knight f3. Now, black has choices here. Actually, three choices. Three choices, not like three moves, three basic choices of positions. They may play b6 and try to keep the tension in its center. They may take on d4 and let you retake back with the knight on d4, or black may go a6, force our knight to d6, and then try to destroy our pawn center by playing cd and f6 later. Let's look at all three choices. For example, black plays b6 and tries to play bishop a6, eliminating their bad bishop. Then we have to go c3, and on bishop a6, a4. Now, the reason why we want to go a4, because if black wants to take on b5, we take back with a pawn, and at least we got black's knight placed uncomfortably on a5. And then we can go rook d1 even. And we are doing fine here with white. And then we go bishop d3 and try to attack on king's side. b6 is not a frequent guest in this position. C takes d gives white some, I would say mid-size advantage and very stable. There are three ways to play. Knight takes d4, actually it's all there, all the same, and then c3 and bishop d3, or you can play castling first, followed by knight takes d4 when black plays a6. And even if queen a5, this endgame position is also clearly better for white. White has very nice outpost for the knight on d4, and they have much better bishop. Now, again, I don't want to go into very complicated analysis of this position. This is clear positional advantage. Now, we covered c takes d, and we covered a6. We covered b6. Now let's go with a6, and this is the main variation, main continuation of this opening, which for many years considered refutation of this opening. Is considered being very bad for white. And that's what is wrong. Now let's see why. We go knight d6, c takes d, and now castling long is not good because after f6, white will get in trouble. What we have to do, now I don't want to go show you why white will get in trouble, because if you want to adapt it for white, I shouldn't be concentrating on showing you how you shouldn't play. I much rather show you how you should play and what should you do if black plays the way they shouldn't play. So that's the way I think is the most productive way of learning it. Bishop d3, f6, castle, pawn takes e5, and pawn takes e5. Okay, this is critical position of this variation, and this variation is in many opening books, considered as better for black. And they back this evaluation with some concrete variations. They said there are two good continuations for black. One is knight takes e5, winning a pawn. And then they said white says some compensation, maybe even better, rook takes f3. And they give some variations too. Now, that's what I want to analyze. First of all, knight takes e5 is very bad continuation. Because after knight takes e5, rook takes f1, rook takes f1, and queen takes d6, this position is absolutely lost for black. And it was a theory used to give queen f4. That's the correct move, knight f5. And now, if white takes the knight and takes pawn on d4, white has compensation for a pawn, and position is approximately equal. That's correct, but that's not white should play. That's not how white should play. This position is totally lost for black after g4. Now, knight must retreat and also should stop queen f7 check, knight h6. And after queen g5, in this position, black is absolutely hopeless. White's threat is amazingly rook f6 and rook takes knight on h6. And there is no defense. Well, king cannot move here because we can simply play queen takes h6, followed by knight f7 check. On bishop d7, we go rook f6, and white wants to play rook takes h6. Black has no defense. On king h8, also rook takes h6, followed by mate. And on queen e7, bishop takes h7 simply wins black's queen, because on king h8 we have knight g6 check and take the queen, and on king takes h7 rook takes h6 check and winning the queen. So knight takes e5 is really bad continuation, but theory does say that rook takes f3 is what the evaluation of this variation based on. After rook takes f3, they say if gf, knight takes e5, knight takes c8, rook takes c8, black has very good compensation for exchange. They have knight and two pawns. This is absolutely correct, and I think it's bad position for white. And the other continuation, they suggest rook takes f3, knight takes e5, rook h3, queen takes d6, bishop takes h7, king f8, and after rook f1, king e8. There are some analysis, and it's been proven that black is better. They have two minor pieces for the rook, and king escapes to c7, and black is better. This two is right. It's absolutely correct. This is both very strong continuations, and they are very good for black. There is one other detail here. In general, this position, first we found, me together with my student Eugene Perlstein, we found first very interesting continuation for white, and we thought white has very strong attack. Then we found some draw for black, and then we found the refutation to this draw. Final conclusion, this position is almost lost for black. And it's very, very interesting to see how this happens. Now, this is something you can find only in one book. It's in my book, together with Eugene Perlstein and Lev Albert, of Openings for Whites Explained. Only that book gives you complete, I'm not even sure if it's complete analysis there or not, but anyway, I will give you complete analysis right now. Queen f4 move. Queen f4 move is threatening knight on e5, and also in case of queen takes d6, simply queen f8 mate. So black must take the knight, rook on f3, and now pawn takes f3. It's hard to tell that two pieces, queen and the knight, create winning attack. And it's absolutely true. So the best move for black is knight f5 by far. Okay, after knight a5, we have to take on f5 and go rook e1, and we have very strong position. And even computer evaluates this position as difficult for black. Also, white has possibly king h1 move that is also very, very dangerous move, because on something like queen f6, knight e8 is nearly winning. On queen f7, knight takes g7, and white's knight on g7 is untouchable. On king takes g7, on queen takes g7, simply rook g1 is going to win the queen. But on king takes g7, rook g1 also wins the queen, because on king h8 there is simply checkmate. On king f8, white can simply win with queen h6 check. And you can see that in every variation here, there is absolutely no defense for black. Now, that's why computer says, well, they don't like position after knight f5. They say knight c6, it's a forced draw. And for a while, we agreed to that because we couldn't find any improvement for black. And here is a draw was mentioned. Queen check, king h8, queen h5, threatening queen h7 mate, and also knight f7, winning black's queen. But then, after g6, white has no advantage. Bishop takes g6. I found this amazing variation. This variation is amazing because it looks so bad for black, but the best white has is a draw. Knight check, king g7, queen h6 check, king f6. And on queen g5 check, king g7. And there is nothing can be done. Bishop hangs and bishop retreats. King retreats. King retreats to f8, and queens will be exchanged. White is going to be in trouble. So they said, well, this is it. There is a draw. And we found first draw, and we were disappointed that white doesn't have more than a draw. However, this is not so. So after knight c6, this position is really bad for black. We play queen f7 check, and after king h8, white wins absolutely unconditionally with king h1 move. And there is no defense for black at all. After king h1, threatening rook g1, there is no move that can save black. If they go h6, there is knight e8, and on queen g5, rook g1. what else can black do? For example, they go queen g8 here. On queen g8, we simply, how can we win here? We are going queen f4, and now we're threatening knight f7, and rook g1 is coming. You see, this position, if you think carefully about it, it has to be totally lost for black, because white has 4 pieces on the board. And there is, no matter what black does, all 4 pieces will be full power attacking, with full power, will be attacking black's position. And the best move here is knight d8, but then we go rook g1. Now you see how every piece is aiming on black's king's position, and you see pitiful position of black's pieces. They are all lined up on a back rank, and the position is, of course, lost. Rook g1, I think the best move here is e5, and actually we go, and after e5, here we play queen takes e5, attack continues, and black has no more material advantage. After queen takes d4, white is going to have material advantage. And knight f7, those are the best moves for black. And after knight f7, we can simply go queen takes d5, and black is in very, very bad shape. So this is actually very interesting. This is something you are not going to find, definitely not going to find in any encyclopedia book. And this is kind of turns all evaluation of the variation upside down. But where is the refutation of bishop d2? I don't know it. And I've been following bishop d2 variation, and I know all the evolution of this variation. And the way they started to play, the way that white was doing well, then not so well, then badly, then it was completely forgotten. And now I brought it up again, and with the help of some computer engines, this variation standing up very strong on its feet. And I would really recommend to play it. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the lecture, and I hope you find this variation interesting enough for you to play in tournaments. Thank you.